If you're flashing a Cyber Essentials badge on your website, but you couldn't explain Willow, Danzel, or the differences between requirements document is V3.2 and V3.3 without Googling it, you're not certified, you're exposed. One awkward question from a big customer, an insurer, or a regulator, and that logo can go from asset to evidence. In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through exactly how the new Cyber Essentials changes can blow up in your face, and what you need to sort before that happens.
He's the guy with the plan for your online life. Keeps your data safe, cuts through the strife. Small biz owners, yeah, this is your guide. Cyber threats, beware, no place to hide. The small business cybersecurity guy, guarding your world with a sharp eagle eye. Tips and tricks to keep your systems tight. Stay secure, stay strong in the digital fight.
You're listening to the Small Business Cybersecurity Guy. I'm Graham Falkner, joined by the ever-subtle Noel Bradford, and we are very happily welcoming back our resident translator of tech, Lucy Harper, fresh from maternity leave and straight back into the chaos. This show is for small business owners like you, who don't have a security department, but you do have customers, contracts, and a reputation to protect. We strip out the jargon and the sales fluff so you can see what actually matters inside your organisation.
Here's what we're about to unpack for you. I'm Lucy Harper, and in this episode, we're taking Cyber Essentials right up to date, looking at requirements version 3.3, the outgoing Willow and incoming Danzel question sets, and what they actually mean for your business if you're leaning on that badge to win work, keep insurers happy, or prove to your customers that you take their data seriously.
Let's decode that, because people keep cocking it up. The requirements document, V3.2, V3.3, and whatever's next, is the actual standard. It defines what you must be doing under the 5 controls: firewalls, secure configuration, security update management, user access control, and malware protection.
Then, separate but linked, you've got the question sets, the forms you fill in. Right now, Willow and Danzel. Willow is the one you use if you're buying certification before the 26th of April 2026. Danzel is for purchases after the 26th of April 2026. Same 5 themes, worded to match the relevant requirements version.
And they're time-boxed on purpose. If you're planning to certify before 26th of April 2026, you prep with Willow plus the matching requirements, which at the moment is V3.2. If you're going to purchase on or after that date, you grab Danzel and, again, the requirements that apply then. V3.3, according to the current docs.
IASME, who deliver the scheme for NCSC, even make it easy. Download the question set in advance, do your homework in a spreadsheet, then when you pay for the portal, you just paste it in. Civilised. Until you realise you used the wrong flaming version.
And if you ignore all of this and hope close enough will pass, renewals first. If you certified on an older flavour, you don't get to recycle last year's answers. Assessors will expect you to meet whatever requirements are current when you buy again. Wrong version, vague answers, missing controls, you fail. No drama, just a fail.
Then there's tenders. Lots of contracts, especially public sector, assume you're certified against the current scheme. If your badge has expired, or your scope is so narrow that today it wouldn't fly, you're putting bids at risk. Even if nobody spots it at the start, it can bite you later.
And the really nasty bit, your public claim. If your cert's lapsed, or your actual IT estate has drifted miles away from what you signed off, that Cyber Essentials certified line on your website becomes creative writing. After a breach, people will start asking, certified when? Against what? With which scope? That's where lawyers and insurers start sharpening pencils.
So the game here isn't chasing acronyms. It's keeping your baseline honest, year after year, as the scheme moves. Use the right requirements, the right question set for your purchase date, and treat the certificate as live, not a sticker you won 3 years ago.
If you do that, Cyber Essentials actually helps you. If you don't, it turns into a very expensive lie you told yourself.
Let's get into the bit everyone bodges, scope. In Cyber Essentials, scope is just what you're putting up for inspection. Networks, hardware, software, and cloud services that run your business.
In a perfect grown-up world, that's your whole IT estate. Everything. The requirements actually say organisations that include their whole infrastructure get the best protection and the most customer confidence. Which makes sense. We only certified the nice, tidy corner doesn't inspire much trust.
You can define a subset, basically a part of the organisation that's segregated by a firewall or VLAN, managed separately. That's legitimate if, say, you've got a lab network walled off. But if you start carving away everything awkward, that's a red flag, and you'll have to justify it to the assessor.
And one hard line, you cannot have a scope with no end-user devices. So no, you can't just certify the servers and pretend the laptops and mobiles magically follow best practice by osmosis.
Don't leave your business exposed. Hit subscribe and like the show. Stay informed and protected. Small business cybersecurity guide. Security tips you can trust. Subscribe now. Stay secure.
So what's actually in play for a normal SME? Devices include servers, desktops, laptops, thin clients, tablets, smartphones, network kit, whether physical or virtual. If a device can accept incoming connections from internet-connected devices, make outbound connections to the internet, or control traffic to or from the internet, and it's in your business, it's in scope.
Software is equally broad. Operating systems, off-the-shelf apps, extensions, interpreters, scripts, libraries, network software, firewall and router firmware. If it runs on an in-scope device and could have vulnerabilities, you're responsible for keeping it in shape.
Home and remote workers. The default is very simple. All corporate or BYOD devices they use for your business are in scope. If you hand them a router for home, that's in too. If they're on their own ISP router, that specific router's out of scope. But you must rely on firewall controls on the device itself.
BYOD is where it gets messy. Any user-owned device that accesses organisational data or services, email, files, SaaS, is in scope. The only carve-outs are if the device is used only for native voice, native text, or MFA apps. So if someone's personal phone just receives codes, fine. If that same phone is also doing work email, congratulations, it's in.
Third parties. If you own the device and loan it to a contractor, volunteer, trustee, whatever, it's in scope. If they own the device, some roles are explicitly out. For example, MSP admins on their own laptops, third-party contractors on their own kit, customers on their own phones. But even then, you're still on the hook to make sure anything that touches your services is configured sensibly, even if it's outside the formal assessment.
Now the big V3.3 clarifier. Cloud. If your data or services are on cloud services, they must be in scope. The doc literally says, cloud services cannot be excluded from scope. Whether it's IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, you're always responsible for making sure the controls are implemented, even if the provider does some of the technical work.
And underpinning all of this is asset management. It's not a named control, but they call it a core security function that helps with all five. In plain English, if your asset list is a half-dead spreadsheet and some post-it notes, you can't honestly answer scope questions. You need one authoritative view of devices, software, and cloud services.
So step one for V3.3 isn't buying tools. It's telling the truth about what you actually have. Scope first, assets second. Get that wrong, and everything else is theatre.
Let's poke at the glossary, because a couple of definition tweaks actually change how some setups are judged, especially around cloud and authentication.
On cloud services, V3.3 finally spells out what most of us already assumed. A cloud service is on-demand, scalable, hosted on shared infrastructure, accessible via the internet, and you use an account to get to it. It stores or processes your organisational data. That's Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, Dropbox, your IaaS, all of it.
Which politely murders the old line of, oh, that's just SaaS, security is their problem. No, if your data lives there, it's in scope, and you have responsibilities, especially around configuration and how users log in.
Software and vulnerability fixes haven't really changed between V3.2 and V3.3. Software is still the whole stack: OS, commercial apps, libraries, scripts, firmware. Vulnerability fixes are anything the vendor prescribes to fix a known issue: patches, updates, registry tweaks, configuration changes, scripts. That matters for the 14-day rule we'll hit later.
The juicy bit is passwordless. In V3.2 they introduced it. In V3.3 they update the definition and explicitly name FIDO2. Passwordless is any method that uses a factor other than knowledge, so not something you know. Examples now include FIDO2 authenticators, biometric data, security keys or tokens, one-time codes, QR codes, and push notifications.
And they make a particular point of passkeys. FIDO2 authenticators, the things underpinning modern passkeys, are treated as passwordless and also as multi-factor because you've got cryptographic keys plus user verification. That's a big nod to where the industry is heading.
They also explicitly mention biometrics, fingerprints, facial features, as passwordless. And the familiar stuff SMEs already use: one-time codes via email, SMS or app, and push notifications where you tap Approve. Those patterns now sit neatly under the passwordless or MFA umbrella, instead of feeling like bolt-ons.
But there's nuance. SMS is called out as not the most secure, but still a huge upgrade on no MFA at all. So if all you've got is SMS codes for now, fine. It still counts as a factor. If you can move to app prompts or hardware keys for admins and sensitive stuff, you bloody well should.
So what does good enough look like for an SME living in Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace? It's something like this. Everyone logs in with at least a decent password plus MFA, or you go passwordless with FIDO2 passkeys or biometrics, mapped to the definitions in the standard. Admins get the stronger options. SMS is a fallback, not the default forever.
And you line that up with the brute force protection rules: limits or throttling on login attempts, or lockouts, and sensible minimum lengths wherever passwords or PINs are still in play. So when you look at your tenant and see passwordless, app-based MFA, security keys, you should be able to point to the Cyber Essentials wording and say, yep, that fits here and here.
Bottom line, version 3.3 isn't dragging you into some exotic auth future. It's just catching up with what 365 and Workspace already offer. Your job is to stop pretending summer 2020 is security and turn on the stuff they've explicitly recognized.
You're listening to the Small Business Cybersecurity Guy. Join the team for an all-new episode every Monday on your favorite podcast platform.
Let's march through the 5 controls and translate them into what you actually do on Monday morning. The headlines haven't changed, but the expectations are a bit sharper.
Firewalls first. Every in-scope device has to be protected by a correctly configured firewall or a network device with firewall functions. That means change default admin passwords to something strong and unique, or kill remote admin completely.
And don't leave the admin interface hanging off the open internet. If you really must expose it, you need a clear, documented business reason, and it has to be wrapped in either MFA or an IP allow list tied to a properly managed password. Everything inbound is blocked by default, and any rule you open is documented, approved by someone with authority, and removed when it's no longer needed.
For remote users on networks you don't control, coffee shops, home broadband, software firewalls on the endpoint are a must. Most modern operating systems ship with them built in. The guidance literally nudges you to switch those on, rather than buying random third-party junk.
Secure configuration is basically stop shipping kit in default mode. Strip out unused user accounts, especially guest and orphan admin accounts. Change any default or guessable passwords. Remove software and services you don't actually use. Kill auto-run features that launch code without the user really choosing to. And make sure people authenticate before they get near organisational data or services.
Device unlock gets its own rules. If someone's physically using the device, you need a PIN, password, or biometric in place. Protect it against brute force, throttle attempts, or lock the device after no more than 10 failed guesses in 5 minutes. Or use vendor defaults if you can't tune it. If it's just for unlocking, 6 characters minimum. If that same credential is used for actual authentication, the full password rules from user access control apply.
Security update management is the infamous 14-day rule. All in-scope software must be licensed and supported. When something becomes unsupported, you remove it or stick it in a subset that genuinely blocks all internet traffic. Automatic updates should be on where possible, and anything fixing a vulnerability marked critical or high, or CVSS V3 score 7 or above, or where the vendor doesn't say how bad it is, that has to be applied within 14 days.
And crucially, an update isn't just Windows Update grinding away. If the vendor says, apply this registry change or flip this config to mitigate a critical bug, that's a vulnerability fix, and it falls under the 14-day expectation too.
User access control. You need a sane process to create and approve user accounts, authenticate with unique credentials, and remove or disable accounts when people leave or go inactive. MFA must be implemented where it's available, and for cloud services, it's not a suggestion. The wording says authentication to cloud services must always use MFA.
Admins get separate admin accounts. No email, no browsing, no faffing about on those. Just admin tasks. Special privileges are removed when they're no longer needed. On passwords, you guard against brute forcing with MFA, throttling, or lockout, and you either use MFA or insist on at least 12 characters, or go with at least 8 plus an automatic block list of common passwords. No pointless password expiry, no absurd complexity rules.
Then, malware protection. Every in-scope device needs some mechanism. For Windows and macOS, that's usually anti-malware software that auto-updates, blocks malware running, blocks malicious code execution, and stops connections to dodgy websites. Or you can go the stricter route, application allow listing, where only approved, code-signed apps can run, and users can't install unsigned or badly signed software.
Most SMEs will lean on the built-in AV, plus maybe some allow listing on key servers. The trick is, whatever you pick has to actually be turned on, updated, and doing those blocking jobs, not just existing as an icon in the tray.
Love the podcast, support the blog, grab some merch, help us keep turning out free content. Every week ain't cheap, merch stores open, have a peek, buy some merch and support independent security.
If you pass Cyber Essentials under V3.2 with the Willow question set, you're not starting from zero. You've already swallowed most of the vegetables.
You should already have firewalls in place with default admin passwords changed and inbound rules documented. Basic secure configuration. No default accounts hanging around, unnecessary software removed, device lock settings configured. And a patching process that can hit that 14-day window for critical and high-risk fixes.
You'll also be running licensed and supported software only, with unsupported stuff either removed or at least targeted for isolation. You've defined a scope boundary, even if it was a bit fuzzy, and you've thought about cloud at least enough to answer the old questions without blushing.
User-wise, you should have a process for creating and killing accounts, separate admin accounts for admin jobs, and some level of MFA on key cloud services. And you'll have anti-malware on your Windows and Mac devices doing the bare minimum.
So what does V3.3 and the Danzel era actually force you to tighten? First, cloud service scoping. The new wording is blunt. If your data or services are on cloud, those services must be in scope and can't be excluded. If you quietly pretended 365 or your CRM was someone else's problem under V3.2, that needs fixing.
Second, MFA coverage. The expectation that cloud authentication uses MFA was already there, but now the user access control text is very clear. Implement MFA where available, and cloud services must always use it. If you only turned it on for admins before, you're going to need a plan to roll it out more broadly.
Third, documenting scope choices properly. Under both versions, you needed business unit, network boundary, physical location. With V3.3's emphasis on things like home and remote working and mandatory cloud scope, any hand-wavy, sort of the office plus a bit of Azure, is more likely to be challenged. If you define a subset, expect to explain why it's separate and how it's segregated.
Then there's aligning however you're doing authentication with the updated definitions. If you started using passwordless sign-in, passkeys, or FIDO2 keys in Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, you want to be able to describe them coherently. Here's where we're password plus MFA. Here's where we're passwordless using FIDO2. Here's how we meet brute force protections and length rules where passwords or pins still exist.
In terms of effort, think of it in two buckets. Small tweaks. Tighten admin use. No more doing everything as domain admin because it's easier. Clean up dormant accounts. Make sure device firewalls are on for remote workers. And actually document your inbound firewall rules with a business reason and an owner.
Bigger changes. Bring all your real cloud services into scope instead of cherry-picking. Extend MFA from just IT and finance to everyone using those services. And finally, deal with unsupported legacy kit by either retiring it or properly isolating it from the internet. Not just promising you'll get round to it.
The good news is V3.3 doesn't rip everything up. It just stops you hiding behind ambiguity. If you treat the shift from Willow to Danzel as a chance to clean up scope, cloud access, and admin practice, you'll be fine. If you were gaming the edges under V3.2, you've got some work to do.
Let's turn this into a checklist you can actually use, not just theory floating around your head.
Step 1. Nail your scope. Decide if you're certifying the whole organisation or a genuinely segregated subset. Write down the business unit, network boundary, and physical locations. If your subset magically excludes all the messy stuff, home workers, cloud, old servers, you're probably kidding yourself.
Step 2. Refresh your asset inventory properly. Not by changing the date on an old spreadsheet. List in-scope devices, servers, laptops, mobiles, network gear, plus key software and vitally, cloud services. For each, note, can it take inbound internet connections, make outbound ones, or control traffic? If yes, and it's part of the business, it's almost certainly in.
Step 3. Map each asset against the 5 controls. For every device or service, ask, what firewall protection does it have? How is it securely configured? How are updates handled? How do people authenticate? What malware protection is on it? A simple table is fine. The point is to spot gaps before an assessor does.
Then tighten configurations. On firewalls, check default passwords, admin access from the internet, inbound rule sprawl, and software firewalls on remote endpoints. For patching, make sure automatic updates are on where they can be, and that you can apply critical or high-risk fixes, including config changes, within 14 days, not whenever Dave remembers.
Account management next. Make sure your joiners, movers, leavers process actually disables accounts when people go. Separate admin accounts exist and are used only for admin work. Dormant accounts are cleared out regularly. MFA is enabled on all your cloud services, not just the one IT uses. Passwords and PINs meet the minimum length and brute force protections, and you've stopped torturing staff with pointless monthly password changes.
On authentication methods, write down how you're doing it. Normal users, password plus app-based MFA. Admins, FIDO2 keys. Mobiles, biometric unlock with throttling, that sort of thing. Map each to the scheme's categories: password-based, MFA, or password-less. That makes the self-assessment questions much easier to answer clearly.
For malware protection, verify that anti-malware is installed, active, and updating on all in-scope Windows and Mac devices, and then it's actually set to block malware, malicious code, and bad websites. If you're using allow listing anywhere, confirm it really is restricting execution to approved, signed apps, and someone is maintaining that allow list, not just hoping.
Once that groundwork is done, download the Right Preview self-assessment question set. Willow, if you're buying before 26 April 2026, Danzel, if after, plus the matching requirements version 3.3. Do a dry run in a spreadsheet, one column for answers, one for what evidence you'd show, screenshots, config snippets, simple policies.
Only when you can get through that rehearsal without hand-waving or arguing with yourself should you actually pay for the portal. At that point, it's data entry, not a last-minute panic attack.
Do this once properly, and next year's renewal is mostly updating what's changed, not reinventing the wheel under time pressure.
Want the deep dive? Check the sources. All the details, guides, and courses. Hit the blog for scripts and more. The Small Business Cybersecurity Guide.co.uk. The blog. Real security. No fluff.
All right, lightning round. These are the questions we keep getting from SMEs who've just realised their cert is expiring next month.
First one. Do I have to include home workers? Yes. The default is that all corporate or BYOD home and remote working devices used for your business are in scope. If you issue a router, that's in too. Their own ISP router is out of scope, but that just means you lean on software firewalls and the other controls on the device.
Next, can I keep a partial scope? You can define a subset if it's properly segregated by a firewall or VLAN and separately managed, but a scope with no end-user devices is flat out unacceptable. And if your subset is clearly just the nice clean bit we're not scared of, expect some raised eyebrows from assessors and customers.
Is SMS 2FA still okay? Yes, technically. The guidance even says SMS isn't the most secure, but still a huge improvement on nothing. Any MFA is better than no MFA. But if you've got the option of app-based prompts or hardware keys, especially for admins and sensitive cloud services, use them. SMS should be your floor, not your ceiling.
Do I need Cyber Essentials Plus? The scheme doesn't say you must. Plus is a technical audit, internal and external tests that check you actually meet the same requirements. Some sectors and contracts might insist on it. If your risk is higher, or you want independent assurance instead of just self-attesting, it's worth looking at. But for a lot of SMEs, basic Cyber Essentials done honestly is the first step. And if you need to go for Plus, then you have 3 months from the date of your Cyber Essentials certification to apply.
Classic ways people trip over? Keeping unsupported software because it still works. Having no MFA on the main cloud suite that runs the business. Vague scope boundaries where nobody can clearly say which devices and services are in. And BYOD chaos. Staff on personal laptops and phones accessing organisational data with zero oversight.
If you want to stay out of trouble over the next 30 to 60 days, here's the priority list. Days 1 to 10. Define and document your scope properly, update your asset inventory, and list every cloud service that holds your data. No hand-waving.
Days 11 to 30. Enable MFA on all those cloud services, not just for IT. Clean up user accounts and admin privileges. Make sure your patching process can hit the 14-day window for critical and high-risk fixes, including config changes the vendor recommends.
Days 31 to 60. Tighten firewall rules and admin access. Switch on and configure anti-malware properly, and do that dry run with the right question set and requirements V3.3. Most of this is time and discipline, not buying shiny new security toys.
Cyber Essentials isn't a magic shield. It's a sensible floor. Get this right, and you avoid most of the stupid, avoidable breaches that wreck small businesses. Get it wrong, and the badge on your website won't save you.
Start with one control. Fix something real. MFA on cloud or killing off old accounts. And it snowballs. It's a lot less scary once you've moved past thinking about it and actually changed something.
On that cheerful note, I think we've poked enough holes in everyone's comfort blanket for one episode.
Yeah, that'll do. Graham, Lucy, thanks for wading through the weeds with me.
Anytime. If you're listening and feeling overwhelmed, just rewind, grab that 30 to 60 day list and start at the top.
Next Monday at midday, we zoom out. We are talking SMB 1001, the bronze to diamond ladder and what it really means for a UK small business. Do you need another badge or do you need a clearer roadmap?
You'll get the preview link in the LinkedIn newsletter on Sunday. Will you read it and decide where you sit? Or will you keep treating security like a vague feeling?
This week, take your Cyber Essentials scope and write it down in plain English. Can you explain it to a customer in 30 seconds?
We'll be back to dig into more of this stuff as the scheme evolves again. Until then, patch your systems, turn on MFA, and stop pretending the cloud is somebody else's problem. Bye for now.
See you next time.
Take care, folks.
Right, before we let you go completely, let's have a quick chat about the boring but necessary legal bits. Don't worry, I'll make this as painless as possible. First up, and this is important, everything we've said today represents our own personal opinions and experiences. These views are ours alone and don't represent any organisation we work for, any employers, advertisers, sponsors, or anyone else who might be connected to the show. When we're giving you advice or sharing our thoughts, that's coming from us as individuals, not speaking on behalf of anyone else. Everything we've talked about today is for general guidance. It's meant to point you in the right direction, but it absolutely shouldn't be treated as professional advice tailored specifically to your business. Your situation is unique. What works brilliantly for a Birmingham bakery might be completely useless for a Manchester marketing agency. We do our very best to keep everything accurate and current, but let's be honest here. The cybersecurity world moves faster than a caffeinated squirrel being chased up a tree by Mauvin's Jack Russell. Things can change between when we record and when you're listening, so always double check critical technical details with qualified professionals before you go making major changes to your systems. If we've mentioned any websites, products or services, we're giving you information, not necessarily giving them our seal of approval. We can't be responsible for what happens on their end or if things go sideways when you use them. Some things we recommend might involve affiliate partnerships. We'll always flag those when they come up because transparency matters. Now, if you're dealing with serious cybersecurity incidents, actual data breaches, or gnarly legal compliance issues, please talk to proper professionals, rather than just relying on podcast advice. We're here to educate and help you understand the landscape, not to replace your security consultant, solicitor, or IT team. This has been a Small Business Cybersecurity Guy production. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.
Click subscribe and join the ride. Together we'll shield the digital tide. Your business is strong when your data's secure. The Small Biz Cyber Guy, here to ensure. Thanks for listening, we're signing off. Stay cyber safe no matter the cost. The Small Biz Cyber